What's up, everybody? My name is Chief Second Lieutenant Peterson, and that slide is incorrect. And today we're talking about firewalls. This is the second lecture of Cyber 100. Right now the course is going through a lot of changes, so I'm sorry that there have been delays in videos coming out. I'm really trying to put together this course in a way that you guys all get as much from it as possible. And I'm just trying to make sure that it is beneficial to all of you. So, that said, let's get right into it. Talking about firewalls. What is a firewall? Well, a firewall isolates your computer from the internet using a wall of code that inspects each individual packet of data as it arrives at the other side of the firewall, inbound or outbound to or from your computer, to determine whether it should be allowed to enter or be blocked. So, to understand fully what a firewall does, you need to look at networking. When referring to a network or the internet, a software or network port is a location where information is sent. For example, port 80 is the HTTP network port. A listing of commonly used ports can also be found in PowerPoint. Users running Microsoft Windows can also utilize the netstat command to view currently active ports and connections that will include ports being currently used. We'll look at that momentarily, as well as how to use firewalls. That'll come at the end of the video. What exactly does a firewall do? Broadly speaking, a computer firewall is a software program that prevents unauthorized access to or from the network. It does this by filtering the packets from an incoming connection. If one of the packets or small chunks of data is flagged by the filters, it is not allowed through. Packets that make it through the filters are sent to the requesting system, and all others are discarded. So, the Windows firewall does a lot of the work for you. When we get into Linux later on in the course, we'll be able to see a little bit more in detail about how firewalls can be configured very, very specifically. The same can also be achieved in Windows, but we're not going to be getting into that because in Cyber Patriot, especially in the first few, unless you make it to Platinum, in the gold tiers and below, you're not going to see a whole lot of work with advanced firewall stuff in Linux, in Windows, but in Linux you will see a little bit more in those gold tiers, so we're going to go into that later. For now, we're looking at Windows. So the Windows firewall does a lot of the work for you. You can just select an application and it'll allow it through the network, or through the firewall. If you're configuring a home system, this isn't for you, because in a home system you also have to worry about your firewall and your router, and that's a whole different thing that we're not going to be getting into, but for Cyber Patriot, this will do. In a real-world scenario, a company may be running an SSH or FTP server out of their office, and you would need to allow one of these through their systems, and you need to understand how to do that. So, some commonly used ports are 20 and 21 for file transfer protocol, 22 for SSH, 23 for Telnet, which we're going to look at later and why it's not good to use, 25 for SMTP, which is an email server, 53 for a domain name service or domain name server, 67 and 68 are for dynamic host configuration protocol, 69 is for TFTP, 80 is for HTTP web servers, 443 is for HTTP with SSL, and 3389 are for remote desktop. It's important to assess your client's needs and then open and close ports to suit those needs. You don't want to close a port or protocol that they need, but it is not wise to leave ports open that they aren't using, and which opens up their system for more vulnerabilities. Earlier in the course, we talked about the CIA triad, and we're going to be applying this here. Firewalls are very important to the CIA triad. They maintain confidentiality of the information. Closing ports that are not used ensures the data stays secure and make sure that the system is free of unneeded threats. It is important for integrity because it makes sure that the system is not being tampered with and that none of the data is being touched. It also ensures availability, which is up to the engineer to make sure that the availability is maintained by configuring it correctly. Next, we're going to go into how to use a firewall. Go ahead and boot up VirtualBox, and I will be right back with you. Okay, so once you're in the virtual machine, go ahead and open up Microsoft Edge. And we're going to search for Nmap download. Go ahead and navigate to this website, nmap.org/download.html. We're going to scroll in here and download the Nmap 7.80 setup.exe. Go ahead and download that. Earlier in the lesson, I said netcat. That's my bad. I'm at Nmap. They kind of do the same thing. I just prefer this one. Once this is done downloading, you can go ahead and run it. I'll also go ahead and include this in the prerequisites to this video, so you may have already completed this by the time you're seeing it. If not, that's okay. That's why I'm walking through it. Go ahead and go through this installer. Agree. Install. Once it's completed, go ahead and click finish. There's two ways you can do this. You can do it through the command prompt using the nmap command, or you can use the nmap GUI. We're going to use the GUI. So you just search for ZenMap on the system. Alright. And then we're just going to make the target this machine, which is, you just type in localhost into the target, and then click scan. Okay, so once this scan is complete, I chose intense scan. There's other types of scans you can select. It didn't take too long though. You can look at the ports that are open on this machine. You can see port 135, 445, and 5357 are open. I have no clue what any of those do, so let's look it up. Remote procedural call, port 135. Interesting. Like a VPN or... Interesting. There's websites you can go to look at vulnerabilities for these and how to exploit them. Interested. When you run an intense scan through Nmap, you get all kinds of information. Don't get too distracted by it. Really, just for this, I'm just trying to demonstrate that there are ports open on this machine. Okay, so now we're going to talk about firewalls and how that pertains to ports. So we can bring up the Windows firewall. And as you can see on this machine specifically, the private network firewall is on, and the guest or public network firewall is on. This is very important that these are on, and you might want to check your system and make sure that they are on. You can come in here, click turn Windows Firewall on or off, and that's how you get to this screen where you can turn it on. That's important that that is on. And we can come in here and look at allowing an app through a firewall. If you just search firewall, you'll see allow app through Windows Firewall. There's an option. You can come in here, click change settings. This will unlock it for you. And here's a list of all of the applications that it is allowed or denied. And you can click allow another app. And you can select a program on your computer that you want to allow through your firewall. So if you had a program, like if you have a game installed or something that needs to be allowed through, this is how you would do it. You would find that application, most likely in your program files somewhere. You want to find that application and allow it through your firewall. Or you might possibly want to disallow an app, and you can come in here and find an app that's on that you don't necessarily want on, and you can remove it. So for instance, remote desktop is not allowed. If it was allowed and you wanted it to be disallowed, you could come in here and just uncheck it. All right, that's all there is to this today. There's not going to be a lab or anything for this specific lesson, but next week, when the course is all figured out and finalized, I'll make sure that there's another lab on the classroom you guys can get points for. If you have any questions, let me know, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this. See you next time.